Good morning. I'm coming on a little bit live, a little bit early rather today, just for the same reason I've done this for the last few sessions. I won't start until 8, but I am going to just let the glitchiness of the live play itself out. Because one of the things that had been happening, it doesn't seem to be happening as badly as it was for a minute there, was that the live would come on and there'd be a frozen picture of me from, like, another day, and so it would just be weird. So I'm just coming on a minute or 2 early to kinda let things sort of settle in, and then I'm gonna, come back on, but I'm actually gonna just hang back for a second and get things sorted. So get ready. Settle in. Alright. Don't notice, either way, I'm gonna mention that the original title of this session was, Human Rights and Conditions of Life, which we are going to get into and it starts, if you're reading along in the book, it starts on page 21. But what we are going to talk about today is we're gonna expand out a little bit more macro, so let's go. So, good morning. Good to Parinama practice space. The intention of the intention of this space is together to create a consistent practice of uniting mental, emotional, and physical cognition, emotion, and reflex. We're uniting all of the layers of our nervous system so nothing is working against another facet of the nervous system. So today's topic is we are going to start off Interruptions and Stressors Week, which is the Parinamaism around what's traditionally considered the catch-all for trauma, both short, both trauma, capital T, and the lowercase. It's written about in the book. It's a Peter Levine thing. But we're going to talk about interruptions and stressors this week. But today we're going to spend some time talking about what is it we're doing here and why. So we've been doing a bit of work on this whole parinama thing, and we started out with why are you doing this? And what we're going to get into again today a little bit is like, okay, what is the end game here? Because this is a lot of work and this is a really challenging process. So it really helps to tap and tag back into the directionality and the motivation and the energy behind doing this. So I'm Katie. I'm Katie Bickford, and I am formerly an executive. I just launched a podcast, co-hosted with Mary Schaub. Congratulations to us, called Business Psychos, where we're talking about how to really navigate and have a fulfilling life, and how we can use corporate to support that and how we can use professional life to support that as far as our livelihood and our incomes. So I used to be an executive. That's headline. I also have lived all over the world. I've studied and traveled and done all sorts of esoteric stuff, like learning how to do a lot of the things that are included in and sort of contextualized in Parinama method. The book, like meditation, yoga, fasting, kriyas, pranayama, living in like Asia and India, Indonesia, whatever. So anyway, enough about me. Let's get into it. So to get started, let's just start with kind of coming into ourselves a bit. I want to just take a breath, first of all, like inhale through the nose and take it like pretty deep and like hold it just for a count or two, and then exhale through the mouth. Let's do that again. Inhale through the nose like sniffing a flower. Hold a little bit at the bottom when you're full, and then exhale through the mouth like blowing out a candle. And just a reminder that the inhale activates the so-called sympathetic nervous system, and the exhale activates the parasympathetic rest and restoration. So using our breath, we're kind of just like bringing ourselves up a bit when we're balancing it. So just I want to do one more. So inhale through the nose. Hold a little bit, and then exhale through the mouth, blowing out the candle. And so let's check in with our mental, emotional, and physical. So checking in physically right now on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? So right now I will say I'm probably like a 7, 8. I just did a lot of work that actually kept like took me like really into my head and had me really working on some kind of more like back end logistical, tactical stuff with hosting and distributing the podcast and like trying to get it launched and ready. Um, and so I spent a few days like pretty inactive. So I can I can really feel that in my body. So I'm going to give myself a low rating. Emotionally, I feel great. I'm probably about 9. Actually, I'll give myself an 8. I think there's a little bit of an emotional hangover that I'm regulating into, which is that when I'm working a lot, I get very fixated. So it has this kind of adrenaline quality. So shifting down from that can take me a little while, and that affects me, like just how I feel. And then mentally, I'm like 9, 10 right now. Really good, really good. Yeah, I had a great day on Sunday spending time with, people that really activated me, and actually, if you're talking about a stress response or a trauma response being activating to the nervous system, this is, like, kind of what I described as traveling in the opposite direction, being really activated in a very positive way. So mentally, I'm feeling very inspired, activated, and stimulated. Also, really great with yeah, like what happened, the work that we did with the podcast. Now, I'm digging into that a little bit to exemplify it, and I wish we could talk about it. I wish you could tell me yours and explain them to me, because it's a really good kind of co-regulation to do with someone. And to just check in when Adia, my niece, is here. We do it in the morning. We start the morning. And just if there's like a number that stands out, we talk it through. So it's a good thing to do with the kids, good thing to do with a partner, just anyone that you have a co-regulation relationship with. So here we are. We're doing it. So all right, let's talk about it. So this week is going to be, so we're going to get into it. And so for today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a bit about the overall context of what the interruptions and stressors week is going to encapsulate and how it fits in with the overall like Parinama method and what we're doing here. Um, and that part. So I'm going to talk a little bit about like how does that fit in with what we're doing, and then we're going to do a little bit of reading where I'm going to go through the human rights, and we're going to contextualize that. I'm going to explain why that's interesting, because that might, like, even just saying human rights might be kind of like a little snoozy, because it's like, oh, human rights, but hang in there. This is not your, I don't know, it's not your mother's take on or whatever. This is a fresh hot take. So if you have been following along with how far we've gotten to date, I'm trying to come up with a good visual here that we can use. Um, we have been discussing how the Parinama method works. And so one of the overarching theme here is how our lived experience is shaped, and that 95% of what we operate out of in our day-to-day life is reflexes that were formed before we actually stay in it. We just adapted to the environments that we lived in. We adapted to the early events and circumstances. And what happens is as we get older, uh, and our cognition begins to develop, we create rationalizing belief systems for those reflexes, as those reflexes representing a universally and unilaterally appropriate response to the world. And this forms what we think is reality. And that reality we project into the world, or we seek environments and people that validate that reality. We project it out into the world one way or the other. The world responds accordingly. And what that does is it tightens our notion that these reflexes are actually just hard facts. Whereas what we're doing in Parinama method is we are teasing this open and realizing that these reflexes are actually physically malleable, and the belief systems that we have around them are also can be reshaped and reformed. So how this works is we go through the nervous system sequential facets of our sense of what it's like to be alive. In the Parinama method, we go through each of these, and what we do is we learn what the facet contains. So for infant safety, like physicality, baby is pleasure, movement, emotion, nurture. It's like feeling, emotion, our emotional life, our capacity for feeling. Toddler, individualism, power, autonomy. So we're talking about all these different stacked facets that impact ultimately what it's like to be you day to day. And back when we were talking about 95% of what you're operating out of is kind of this tangle relates to each of your facets. So let's get into it. It's like, all right, so each of these facets, we learn what it is. We come to understand the interruptions and stressors, and that's the point of this week. We're going to spend some time in there. Then we come to know the adaptation patterns. Like, how do we adapt? How do we make the best out of our given circumstances, and as a result, shape ourselves? And then the final stage of this is we use exercises and techniques to, first of all, create more dynamism in the hub. So we're creating more of a like real-time reactivity versus sort of a hardened patterning. And we increase our capacity to be able to handle more and to be able to, sort of create some boundary in our capacity, so it's not sort of like leaky and going all over the place. But more on that later. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why. So this sense of, when we're talking about the tangle, we're looking at what does it feel like to be me every day, and what are these factors that we want to. Let me rewind on that. I'm going to take a little moment for this. What are we uncovering here? So it's like, okay, well, after all this work, what is there? So these reflexes and our beliefs around the world, it's like, well, when those get shifted, what are we shifting them to, and what is left? So in the book, in Parinama Method, there's a notion of an emblem, which is something that's uniquely you at the core of what you are, and the expression of that. The fact that there is something very uniquely you about you, and that emblem has a mission in life. It has a sensibility, it's seeking something. And so what that represents, what we're finding that emblem means and accessing it and being able to excavate it from under adaptations, under shadows that have been maladapted over it, like shame, um, lack of curiosity, fear, guilt, rage, isolation, the list goes on. When we're actually working through these things with Parinama, what we're doing is it's almost like we're uncovering the diamond, the gem of what we actually are. And when that shines, everything changes. So this is the change everything. So there's something that is uniquely you, and you know it. You know there's something that's uniquely you. But one thing is you might be disappointed to find that self-actualization, it doesn't make you something different than what you are. It changes your relationship with what you are. So you might be saying, well, when I'm kind of more whatever, I'll be less of this, or I'll be like markedly different. These qualities that maybe I won't be so this, maybe I won't be so pushy, maybe I won't be so, like whatever, maybe definitely less insecure. But that was almost about to come out. It's like, that's not right. Um, and what we're doing is we're reestablishing our relationship with our qualities without creating a negative overlay on them. And this is back to there's nothing wrong with you, and coming to understand and be fully accountable and fully understanding who and what we are and our unique suite of qualities that we have. Um, and I'm gonna leave it at that, because one of the things that happens when we get into this process is that by softening or like disintegrating or eliminating these adaptations of chronic shame, being scared all the time, being defensive, being emotionally shut down, being, all sorts of things have to do with like maybe being overbearing in relationships, or being avoidant, being, yeah, I mean, I'd also give overbearing as far as fifth hub, or not speaking up and getting your sort of the things that need to be expressed in you trapped inside of you and create tension. Even being able to allowing yourself to see things clearly. So, the things like getting stuck, like getting like trapped. For me, one of the things is this thing. I had the 11, like really blocking, not wanting to see because I wasn't ready and I didn't have the capacity to take it on. But where these are the adaptations that wind up being able to soften and fall away. And some aspects of those qualities remain in the function that is actually beneficial for you. And the one thing before as wrapping up this emblem notion is to really underline, bold, and highlight the fact that every single person on this earth has a contribution that matters and is meaningful. Now, it's really important to keep in mind that is, that like one of the things that blocks us from being able to see that is the mistaken notion that everybody wants the same things. Everyone wants power, everyone wants wealth, everyone wants, and if you investigate the true nature of your like longings, your preferences, the things that make you happy, they're simple, but they're uniquely tuned to you. So maybe you love a certain facet of technology. It just lights you up and brings you life. And you like playing, like you like being, like out, maybe you like being outside, maybe you don't like being, one example I have is, I have a house cleaner who is so passionate about investigating, um, environmentally friendly cleaning materials and does before and after pictures and gets so passionate and geeked out about what she's doing, that and you walk in your house once it's been cleaned and it's like, oh my God, this is like godly work. My home and my sanctuary is transformed into feeling completely different. And anybody who walks into a house that has been freshly cleaned, your home, that's not lowly work. We've kind of done something where we kind of have like hierarchied the like different types of work to be, with status. And so your emblem contains within it something that is very uniquely tuned to doing something absolutely extraordinary and spectacular. And if every human being were to unlock theirs, they would all fit together perfectly to create a greater, like a step up evolutionary, greater next level existence. But what we're doing right here is doing our individual work to be able to be our little piece that fits in perfectly, and we don't have to worry about the other ones. So let's talk about interruptions and stressors. And so shifting gears a little bit, today is a little bit on the heavy on the philosophical side, is that so the interruptions and stressors with Parinama method is that we're talking about what are the things that happened during that particular age period in the hub that really shaped our notion of a particular aspect of ourselves. And so we get into it in part 2 when we go into each hub. We talk about really specifics and not exhaustively, but the types of events and circumstances. And like we get more granular about them. But an overarching concept here would be 2 things that have to do with interruptions and stressors in the development of the hubs. And that is your human rights. So the conditions that hub like absolutely flourishes in. And the second is boundaries that relate to the hub. So the establishment of them, so being able to uphold them and observe them in others. And this will make more sense when we get into this, but I'm just going to do a little reading and we'll take it from there. So no, I'm going to do a little bit of reading too from just the top of page 21 with interruptions and stressors, which is stressors are events and phenomena that interfere and interrupt the naturally occurring and healthy development of a hub. They include the events and they occur the events and behaviors we directly experience happening to us and those we witness happening to others. A resulting interruption is how these events and behaviors affect the development of a hub. Healthy and normal are subjective assessments without clear definitions. They're more commonly identified by what they are not, like as in that's not normal, rather than an explanation of what normal can be. Normal is like a notion that's like very like shame binding because it's like it can't be defined. So it's like perfect for shame because it's just like a little big and sort of kind of overbearing. So the psychiatric profession defines all kinds of so-called abnormal psychology, but has no agreed upon standard of normalcy. There's so much dynamism in psychological functioning. Normal simply doesn't exist. So healthy in the Parinama method simply means that the human rights and boundaries of the hub have not been significantly denied or invaded. So there's more reading if you're like really, if you want to go deeper. But we're going to get into it. So many of us live in so-called meritocratic cultures, the idea that we get and deserve what we earn. There's a lot of cultural mythology supporting the cruelty of meritocracy, and the simplicity of this belief crowds out the harsh reality of the inequality of opportunities of opportunity distribution. The token animal of meritocracy is the lion, an apex predator. But what this mythology doesn't include is the reality that apex predators tend to be bad at hunting. A lion's kill rate is about 25%. It gains its apex status by stealing and scavenging the kills of so-called betas, such as African painted dogs, which have a successful kill rate closer to 90%. So while believing in meritocracy often causes disdain for so-called losers, ultimately it's a torturous pattern of outrunning feelings of unworthiness, resulting in burnout and punishing standards for the so-called winners. So the following human rights for each hub are every person's birth rate, and the process of reclaiming them, even though they were always ours to begin with, can be difficult. It starts with knowing that simply being alive establishes worthiness. Existence is the only merit required for a human life to be valuable and important. So, I read that and I'm like, yeah, this is why people can't read the book really quickly. It's really heavy. It's really heavy. It's really heavy. And it's beautiful. But it's very, and I will, and one of the things that I'll point out is the fact that it's heavy is heartbreaking. The fact, because what we're doing is we're confronting a mistruth that has been kind of chiseled into many of our belief systems. So coming into that, it feels true. You can feel the truth of it. Hopefully you can feel the truth of it. But there is some cognitive dissonance that has to do with some of the patterning that has been implanted in us. So I'm going to read, let's see, we've got 5 minutes left. So I'm going to read the first hub today. That's it. There are 7. And if you want to go deeper, and we'll talk a little bit more tomorrow, page 22 and 23. The first hub, human rights. And reminder that the first hub is about your physicality, your physical existence, your physical safety, your trust in your physical safety and survival. So the first hub human rights are the right to be here, the right to take up space. Working on this right can feel deep and confronting. When we reclaim the first hub, we get better at caring for our physical body and build trust in ourselves and in our self-worth. The central tenet of this hub is trusting that you will have your essential survival needs met. Now, I'll give you the bullets, and I'm going to kind of talk to this for just a moment, and then we're going to wrap it up. So the tenets are the right to exist and take up space, the right to physical security, the right to have what you need to survive, the right to sovereign ownership of your physical body. Now, one thing that you may be noticing is that we live within a system that does not make that really possible to establish unless you actively work against it. So you have health insurance that you need to, that's expensive or requires conventional employment. You have inflation economic models that are really difficult to navigate. You have systems of extraordinary inequality where like some folks have a much easier access to opportunity than others. And so these systems are constructs that have been created, and they are not true. They are just ideas that have been manifested into reality. And for the most part, they have a lot of nefarious, malignant, maleficent aspects to them. And we'll get more into that as we keep going. But realizing that to reclaim this human right is not that we get to be safe, because safety as an absolute is not something that is real. But what we do get to do is we get to become conscious of of hypervigilance and managing it, and being able to find the feeling of safety in our bodies so that we can reclaim it, being able to trust our fear as one of the really important things that keeps us safe by dodging us reflexively out of harm's way and having us sort of instinctively move towards doing the things that keep us alive and safe. So the first hub reclamation of this human right is has a lot of dynamism in it, but the reward for getting this is its sense of ease that for many people is completely incomprehensible. So today, I'm just going to wrap it up for now, and we're not going to do an exercise today, aside from the two that we did at the top of this chapter. Actually, I'm changing my mind. We are going to do a little exercise if you stick around. Hopefully you do, which is just the having your back exercise. So we're just going to do a body scan, but we're going to scan the back of our body and bring our attention to the bottoms of our feet. So direct your attention there and notice where they are on the ground, but more specifically, just become really conscious of the bottoms of your feet. Now look at your heels, and now travel up the backs of your legs to your calves, on the back of your knee, up your hamstrings to your bum. Now just direct your attention to your lower back and just notice it. See if there's any particular feeling or sensation in there. If not, just its existence. Moving up through your torso, your back, your mid back. Now behind your heart, your shoulder blades. Maybe investigate a little bit of the back of the arms. Traveling up the back of your neck, the back of your head, and all the way up to the top of your head. And here we are. You have your back. You have your back. So just checking in. And so tomorrow we will continue talking about interruptions and stressors. It'll be hopefully a little bit more fenced in with some structure, but for now, hopefully you had fun today. Any interaction, likes, shares, comments, whatever are appreciated, but ultimately this is your process and your experience, and that is what matters most. So I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming along, and I hope you have the best of the rest of whatever's before you. All right, bye for now.